Civilian action figures are something that, as well, both kids and adult collectors, well, they've struggled with. It's hard to get them. They're not really aspirational, but they work well as fodder for superheroes to save or villains to kidnap. Well, it looks like a major toy company has finally cracked the civilian mass retail problem, and it's being solved by GI Joe Classified, a line that it looks like now I'm going to start collecting. Let's jump in on Spector Creative. Hey guys, welcome back to Spector Creative. I'm Toy Guru Neitlich. Glad to be your host. Glad to have you with us. It is always so nice when you spend some time to talk toys with us and pop culture and all that jazz. I admittedly do not do enough videos about G.I. Joe, and well, there's a reason for that. I confess, as a child of the 80s, that was the one line that just it wasn't on my table. My best friend Sean, tons of G.I. Joes. I didn't own a single one. I had Star Wars out the wazoo. I had Ninja Turtles. I mean, this is my actual, this is my Ralph. I painted the, when I was a kid, his sigh. That's how much I loved this. But yeah, and Transformers, though I don't think I have too many of my originals anymore. And of course, He-Man. I think everyone knows I'm a fan of He-Man and Masters of the Universe. If you haven't, go check out, any of the videos I did on this channel for the first 10 years. But G.I. Joe, because I didn't have that connection as a child, I really haven't been that interested in the really awesome G.I. Joe Classified series. I own one. Literally, I own this Cobra Commander because I like having I have a villain shelf and I like having, all the major villains. And I thought this was a pretty darn good figure. I mean, I've seen an episode here or there, and I've seen the modern movies, or the ones from a few years ago, which I actually really liked. I mean, they had ninjas with jetpacks. How do you not fail when you have ninjas with jetpacks? Anyway, that's not important right now. What I'm excited that the Classified series is doing is they are embracing the classic nature of GI Joe, that it extends beyond Real American Hero, the '80s line where there were characters. Obviously, GI Joe goes back to the '60s. It was the original action figure with real feel hair and kung fu grip and all of that. But they didn't have characters, like the way they've got everyone from Shipwreck to Calendar Girl to all the to Cobra Ninjas and all blah 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 Crimson Guard. I mean, I just know this stuff from being a toy guy. But again, I'm not a huge GI Joe fan. I apologize to those who are. There's nothing wrong with it. It just somehow didn't hit me. All right, so yeah, so what Hasbro is doing is they're embracing the heritage of GI Joe, where for the first 2.5 decades it was entirely sort of public domain military and everyday heroes. Everything from you had your every branch of the military to firefighters and policemen, which there you go. That's how I'm linking what I'm talking about today. So what's out now at retail for classifieds at mass retail is what I mean by retail. I mean, you can get anything on Amazon. Are GI Joe Classified? They have a firefighter and they have a police officer, which honestly are just fantastic generic firefighter and police officers. I mean, who doesn't want one to pose next to any superhero from any publisher? DC, Image, Marvel. Cops and firefighters are always sort of showing up in comic books, and not to mention their real world brave heroes and all of that. I mean, absolutely. Thank you all for your service. Those of you who are firefighters and police officers out there. But for years, it's been you couldn't get like I've always thought this was interesting. You couldn't get like a police officer action figure at Target or at Walmart, and the reason being is public domain, characters that aren't part of content really do struggle at mass retail. Content is everything. I mean, the toy aisles, I've mentioned this in a few videos, they're there to sell toys, but they're really there to advertise content. That's why there's giant displays, of toys reaching on the aisle, like, Target when they have the, Jurassic Park giant T-Rex cutout, above the toy aisle. That's there because the toys themselves are billboards for content. Content is really what drives the toy aisle. And having, everyday heroes, like, there was that line years ago that put out like historic characters. I have the Sherlock Holmes from it. I remember they had a Marie Antoinette whose head popped off, and that shushing librarian. Why can I not remember the brand name for that line? Well, I'll find images of it while I'm editing this, and put it up on screen like that. Oh, that's what it's called. See how I did that? All right. So those things showed up at hobby shops and, places like Urban Outfitters, but you wouldn't really see those at mass retail because as much as police officers and military are, everyday real world heroes, they're not connected to content. But by using historic G.I. Joe as the content, Hasbro has found a way to get a generic police officer and a generic firefighter at mass retail. That is a huge thing. I mean, that, it's really difficult to do that. I love that they cracked it by relying on the heritage of the G.I. Joe line. So I really hope they keep doing this. I may actually now be getting into G.I. Joe classified figures because, yeah, I think my only con with the cop figures, it's only limited to 2 heads. I wish they included like 5 heads. I would have rather had more heads than more weapons. But I understand, G.I. Joe is kind of all about the accessories. But, it would be cool to get, be able to assemble like a whole squad of police officers to, flank Superman or Spider-Man or, whoever, even C-3PO, he could go crazy. You never know. So yeah, I'd love to see, generic military, like going back to the 60s, and astronauts and paratroopers. And like, I think these would, and I think the golden goose is the true civilian, right? Outside of, occasionally getting, your Gwen Stacy's or, your Vern from the Ninja Turtles line, you don't really get generic, true just civilians, screaming innocent victims, outside of like some PVC figures or some stuff sold at Lakeshore or things like that. So that's kind of like that might be a bridge too far, but at least we are being able to walk into Target and buy a everyday police officer figure. To me, as a toy maker, someone who's been through the corporate system of trying to get stuff approved and the restrictions of retail, it just congratulations, Hasbro. I think it's awesome that is there, and I hope kids enjoy playing with it. I hope collectors enjoy collecting it. And I hope, Hasbro, if you're watching, you do more of these. And I love that G.I. Joe heritage has become the content to drive an everyday hero to retail. That is pretty amazing. And hey, way to go. So cool. I hope you enjoyed this video. I'm sorry I don't do enough on G.I. Joe. I like my Cobra Commander, but maybe I'll be adding some more. I'm not into the characters of G.I. Joe. I just don't have any connection to them. So I'm sorry. I'm sorry for those of you who I know love them. I respect it. Nothing but respect. But hey, if we're gonna start getting like scuba warriors and paratroopers and astronauts, I'm kind of digging that. So let's see what you got, Hasbro. Bring it on. All right. Thanks for watching. Thanks for sharing. It's the best way to support this channel. I appreciate it. I'll see you guys in the next video.